The city skyline glittered like a necklace of broken stars outside my office window, but my eyes weren't on the view. I leaned back in the leather chair, the silk of my blouse cool against my skin, one heel dangling absent-mindedly off my foot. My desk smelled faintly of roasted coffee and lavender polish, a strange comfort I'd grown used to in my sanctuary of glass and steel. For most people, this office represented success. For me, it was survival. It was proof that I'd clawed my way out of shadows no one even knew I'd lived in. I kept that truth tucked away, folded like an old letter in the back of my mind. Then my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it until I saw the name, Mom. I let it ring once, twice. By the third time, I swiped the screen, bracing myself. Her voice rushed through, frantic. "Madeline, it's your sister again. Something happened at the campus." I closed my eyes, my fingers tightening around the phone. A cold, bitter smile flickered across my lips. My twin, Melanie Ross, the girl everyone adored, the girl who could do no wrong, the girl who once got drunk and smashed half the property at a fraternity party, and yet, somehow, I had been the one blamed. And here we were again. Years later. Same story. Different stakes. "Of course it's Melanie," I whispered to the empty office, the words tasting like irony and old wounds. "College feels like another lifetime now, but sometimes the memories come back in sharp, painful flashes, like glass shards you thought you'd swept away, but still find embedded in the carpet." Melanie and I were identical twins. Identical, at least on the outside. Same hazel eyes, same waves of auburn hair, same dimple on the left cheek. But where she carried herself with a kind of reckless charm, I was the quieter one, the girl professors described as responsible and serious. I never minded those words, until they became chains. It was sophomore year when everything truly snapped. There had been a fraternity party, one of those wild, sprawling nights of blaring music and spilled beer. I hadn't gone. I was in the library, preparing for a midterm. Melanie had gone, though, in her red dress and unshakable confidence. And sometime around midnight, drunk and laughing too loud, she'd knocked over a table stacked with expensive sound equipment. Thousands of dollars worth of damage. The next morning, our parents showed up on campus. Not to confront Melanie. Not to demand accountability. But to corner me. I still remember the sting of my father's words as we stood outside the dean's office. "Maddie, you need to be more responsible. How could you let your sister get herself into this situation?" I wasn't even there. I whispered, my hands trembling, my throat tightening. "Excuses," my mother cut in, shaking her head. "You're her twin. You're supposed to keep her in check." The humiliation burned hotter than the spring sun overhead. I wanted to scream, to remind them that I wasn't her keeper, that Melanie wasn't some child I could control. But the words lodged in my chest, swallowed by years of being the other twin, the backup plan, the shadow. Later that night, as I sat alone on the dorm bed, my grandmother's old fountain pen rolled out of the drawer. She'd given it to me the year she passed away, pressing it into my palm with the words, "Write your own story, Maddie. Don't let anyone else hold the pen." I stared at that pen for a long time, the weight of it grounding me. That was the night I made my choice. I couldn't keep living in Melanie's shadow, or under my parents' impossible expectations. So I packed a small suitcase, zipped it shut with shaking hands, and promised myself, from this day forward, my life would be mine. Starting over felt like standing barefoot on broken glass, painful, shaky, and every step leaving its mark. I left the dorm quietly that night, suitcase wheels clicking against the cracked pavement, and I never looked back. At first, life was brutal. I juggled 2 part-time jobs, waiting tables at a diner in the evenings and shelving books at a used bookstore in the mornings. My fingertips smelled of ink and grease, my shoes always sore, but there was a strange freedom in the exhaustion. Every dollar I earned was mine. No one could take that away. Then came my chance. Professor Whitfield, a sharp, silver-haired woman in the English department, noticed my essays. She was one of the rare voices who saw me, not just Melanie's twin. After class one day, she pulled me aside. "You have a gift for words, Maddie," she said, handing back a paper covered in her neat red ink. "Stop shrinking yourself. Use it." That was the spark. With her encouragement, I began freelancing, writing blog posts, editing essays, ghostwriting content for small businesses online. It wasn't glamorous, but it was something I built with my own hands. The nights were long. I'd sit hunched over a borrowed laptop in the corner of my tiny sublet, chipped mug of coffee at my side, typing until dawn. Some mornings I questioned everything. Was I just fooling myself? Would I always be the responsible twin? Never the one who shined? But then, small victories trickled in. My first real paycheck for an article, $50. My first client who requested me again. My first week where I could cover rent without panicking. Each step was a thread, slowly weaving into a safety net I never thought I'd have. Eventually, I outgrew the side gigs. With Professor Whitfield's help, I landed an internship at a marketing agency downtown. The office was nothing fancy, but for me, it was a cathedral. The smell of fresh paper, the constant hum of ideas, the way my words could shape campaigns, it was intoxicating. I climbed, rung by rung. Late nights, mistakes, revisions, presentations that left my palms sweating. And slowly, recognition followed. Promotions. Clients asking for me by name. Savings growing quietly in a bank account no one knew existed. Meanwhile, my family kept their distance. Calls from my mother were always about Melanie, her new boyfriends, her meltdowns, her potential. My role was silent listener. If they asked about me at all, it was surface level. So, still working? Yes. That's good. I never told them about the contracts, the salary bumps, the awards tucked in my desk drawer. Let them believe I was average. Let them think I was invisible. It made my growth sweeter, my victories sharper. Years passed, and one morning, I signed the paperwork that made my little side hustle a full-fledged agency of its own. Ross Creative Media. My name, my vision, my independence, inked in black and white. And not a single person in my family had any idea. It happened on a Thursday. I remember because Thursdays were my ritual days: cappuccino at 8 a.m., strategy meeting at 10, client pitch at 2. Everything ran like clockwork, my little empire ticking smoothly along. Until the receptionist buzzed my office. "Ms. Ross, your family is here." They insisted on waiting. I froze, coffee cup halfway to my lips. Family. They never visited me. Not once in all these years. My stomach knotted as I set the cup down, a single dark ring staining the glass coaster. When I stepped into the lobby, time folded in on itself. There they were, my mother, ringing her pearls, my father, stiff-jawed as ever, and Melanie, slouched in a chair, sunglasses hiding her bloodshot eyes. "Maddie," my mother said, standing. "Thank God. We didn't know where else to go." Her voice was syrupy, desperate. I waited, letting the silence stretch. Finally, my father cleared his throat. "It's Melanie. She got into some trouble again. Damaged school property. There may be legal fees. We thought maybe you could help," my mother finished, eyes darting around the office. That was the moment they noticed. The gleaming marble reception desk. The company logo etched in glass across the wall. Ross Creative Media. The soft hum of employees tapping at keyboards, dressed in polished suits, their eyes occasionally flicking toward me with respect. "This is yours?" my father asked, his voice breaking for the first time I could remember. I let a beat of silence pass before I answered. "Yes. Every inch of it. Built from the ground up. Without a cent of help from you." The words landed like stones dropped into still water. My mother's lips parted, but no sound came out. Melanie pulled off her sunglasses, blinking at me as if I'd grown into a stranger. I walked them through the office slowly, deliberately. Past the conference room with its glass walls and commissioned art. Past the awards lined neatly on shelves. Past the glass door of my private office, etched with my name, Madeline Ross, founder and CEO. When we reached the floor-to-ceiling window, I turned to face them. The city sprawled behind me, glittering and vast, like proof of everything they'd refused to see. All those years you told me I wasn't enough. That I was supposed to clean up after Melanie. That my job was to stay small so she could shine, I said, my voice steady. Well, I got tired of playing that role. So I wrote my own story. Melanie's eyes filled with something between shame and disbelief. You never told me. Would you have listened? I asked quietly. Or would you have laughed the way you always did? My father's shoulders sagged, the arrogance drained from his face. My mother clutched her purse like a lifeline. For the first time, I wasn't the quiet twin, the responsible twin, the invisible twin. I was the woman who had taken every ounce of pain they'd handed me and turned it into fire. I let the silence stretch again, savoring it. Then I said the words I had rehearsed in my head for years, words that tasted like freedom. I don't need you anymore.
But it seems you need me.
The air crackled with the weight of it. And for the first time in my life, I saw it clearly in their eyes, respect, tangled with regret. I let them sit in my office, not on the guest chairs, but at the long-polished conference table where I usually negotiated million-dollar contracts. It wasn't intentional, or maybe it was. I wanted them to feel the weight of the place, of me. Melanie slouched, her arms crossed, avoiding my eyes. My father tapped his fingers against the table, a rhythm of impatience he'd carried all my life. My mother finally broke the silence. Maddie, we didn't know things had gotten this complicated. Your sister just needs a little financial support to fix the damage. You're in a position to help. Families should stick together. Her words were careful, but the old entitlement was still there, woven beneath the surface. I folded my hands, the gold fountain pen resting between my fingers, the same pen my grandmother once gave me. It felt heavy now, like judgment. I will help, I said slowly. Relief flooded their faces for a brief, naive second. Then I added, but not without conditions. My father stiffened. Conditions? Yes, I replied firmly. I've spent years living under your conditions, your rules, your favoritism, your silence when Melanie hurt me. If I'm to help now, you'll meet mine. I turned to my mother first. You will stop treating me like a second draft of my sister. You will acknowledge the work I've done, the woman I've become. If you call me, it won't be just to discuss Melanie. It will be to ask how I am doing. Her lips trembled, but she nodded. Then I faced my father. You will drop the arrogance. You always believed control equaled strength. But real strength is admitting when you were wrong. If you want my support now, you'll admit it, not just to me, but to yourself. His jaw clenched, but after a long pause, he lowered his eyes. Finally, I turned to Melanie. She was chewing her lip, a nervous tick I'd memorized years ago. You, I said, my voice soft but unyielding, will take responsibility. No more hiding behind me, no more letting mom and dad cushion every fall. You will enter rehab. You will face the choices you've made, the damage you've caused, and you will start over. Not because of me.
Not because of them.
Because it's the only way you'll survive yourself. Her eyes brimmed with tears. For once, she didn't argue. She only whispered, "Okay." I leaned back, the weight lifting from my chest. Then I'll pay for the damages. But this isn't just a bailout. It's a reset. A line in the sand. For the first time, they were silent not because they dismissed me, but because they were listening. In the weeks that followed, something shifted. It wasn't sudden or dramatic, but real change rarely is. My father called me once, not to ask for money, not to scold, but simply to say, I was wrong. The words came out haltingly, like a foreign language, but they were there. For him, that was monumental. My mother began texting me photos of sunsets, of the old family dog, of recipes she was trying. Little things. It felt like her quiet way of learning how to see me, not just through the filter of Melanie. And Melanie, she checked into rehab. The first week, I doubted she'd last. But each time I visited, her face looked a little clearer, her voice steadier. She apologized, really apologized, not just for that night in college, but for years of making me her safety net. For the first time, I saw her not as my burden, but as my twin trying, finally, to stand. One evening, after a long day at the office, I found myself sitting at my desk alone. The city lights glittered outside like tiny promises. My hand reached for the object I had carried all these years, my grandmother's fountain pen. I turned it between my fingers, remembering her words, "Write your own story." That pen had been with me when I packed my suitcase, when I signed my first contract, when I created my company. It was more than ink and metal. It was proof that even when the world tried to script my role, I had found the courage to edit the ending. I set the pen gently on the desk, a symbol not of burden, but of victory. Closing my eyes, I thought of the girl I had been, the one who trembled outside the dean's office, silenced by her parents' disappointment, invisible beside her twins' chaos. And then I thought of the woman I had become, the one whose voice now filled entire boardrooms, whose decisions changed lives, whose story was finally her own. When I opened my eyes, the reflection in the window didn't scare me anymore.
It empowered me.
I picked up the pen one last time, whispered a thank you to the grandmother who had believed in me, and smiled. Because the truth was clear now, in every corner of my soul. Sometimes the only way to heal is to write your own ending, and I finally did.